Hey folks, Joey from Cherry Hill Home Remodeling. I'm going to talk to you about blades today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this general blade synopsis that I got here. I'm going to read what they say and then I'm going to tell you the truth, okay? Not that they're saying it's false, but in the field, what they say and what happens in real life are not the same. This one says general purpose blade typically have between 24 and 40 teeth and are made of carbide. Application ideal for construction projects, remodeling, general woodworking. That's true. A 40 tooth blade should be your go-to blade on all your saws because a 40 tooth blade can make a miter cut because there's enough teeth on there to do that. Now, I'm going to tell you prefer to have 60 or higher, and you also want to make sure your kerf. Kerf is how thick the blade is. The line that it leaves after it cuts, that's called a kerf. So the kerf is how thick the blade is. You want the kerf to be as thin as possible on a miter cut so you're losing as little material as possible when you make your cuts. It sounds silly, but you make 10 cuts in a piece of lumber and each one of those cuts is, let's say, a 16th wide. Well, 10, I'm not sure what the math is, but you're going to lose like an inch, half inch of material. Oh, that's so little. Yeah, until you get to that last piece and you wish you had that inch. Now you're going to be wishing you had a thinner blade. So bear that in mind, okay? Finishing blades. Finishing blades, I know what that, they have higher tooth count. They usually have a thinner kerf. They're good for precise cuts, cabinet making, furniture, and fine woodworking. If you're doing remodeling, your fine woodworking doesn't come into play until after you've passed your frame inspection and after you've passed all the other inspections so that you can start building this particular thing. Your trim work, your cabinets, if you're making them yourself, that's your fine work. That's you want to make sure you have your finishing blades on your different saws, okay? Demo's over, you get rid of the demo blades, okay? A ripping blade has aggressive teeth with a thick kerf, and that's designed to cut with the grain. Again, 40 tooth blade on your saw will do all the ripping you need it to do. Cross cuts, same thing. This is telling you need a special blade for that. If you use a 40 tooth or higher blade with a thick kerf, it is going to do both those cuts without having to change blades for every single. Can you imagine? You gotta, I gotta change the blade. I gotta change it. Nah, 40 tooth or higher, thick kerf will do all that job, all that work. Now we're getting to the specialty blades. Now we're getting into miter blades. The teeth are similar to the higher tooth tools, but it's got a thin kerf. Again, kerf is the thickness. These are designed to make accurate miter cuts, okay? So if you know you're going to use your saw for miter cuts, I showed you in a video a couple back how your saw, circular saw, can be a table saw, it can be a miter saw, it can do all the work that you need it to do. If you get to a job and it turns out you don't have either one of those saws or you didn't know this kind of work was coming up, you can use your circular saw to do both jobs. It's the blade that's going to make the difference. If you're using a miter blade, you want to make sure it's thin and has at least 60 or more teeth. Very important. You can only make inside and outside cuts with your saw with our miter plate that we showed you. You can make 45s, you just want to make sure you have a square. Put the square on the work, follow the 45 on the square. You'll make a 45 every time, inside or out. So bear that in mind. The saw blade that you're going to be using for this particular project, just mitering, is going to be for inside and outside cuts. Very important tip. If you're making a 3-foot piece of lumber to fit into a spot, make sure that when you cut on the outside of the line. When you're done, you should still be able to see the line you made to mark 3 foot. If you make that line go away, now you're going to be cutting your 3-foot piece down to 2 foot 7/8, whatever. It's going to be too short. You're not going to be happy, okay? It's better that you cut it on the outside lines, you bring it over and it's a teeny bit big because you can make that adjustment. But if it's a teeny bit small, there's no fixing it. You're going to have to recut it on the outside of the line. So just make it a habit to cut on the outside of the line, okay? Next up we have our specialty blades. Now specialty blades, those are things for cutting. Metal cutting blades, masonry blades, and plastic cutting blades. They also have a plywood blade. Plywood blade looks like a hacksaw. The plastic cutting blade is the same. It looks kind of like a hacksaw, but it's got a thinner curve. The masonry blade is diamond tipped. Very expensive blade for a circular saw. You're better off, if you know you're going to be doing masonry, get a masonry saw. Proper job for the proper tool. Proper tool for the proper job. Reason why is using the circular saw to cut masonry is going to ruin your saw. When you cut masonry, you create a tremendous amount of dust. And that dust is going to get all inside of your motor. And you're going to have a bad day. And even worse, when you get to your next job, no matter how much you blow on the tool, when you're done, when you start it up, dust is going to shoot out of it. And if you're in a house and it just makes you look tacky. So don't use your saw for masonry work. Use a masonry blade saw for masonry work. And then you got metal cutting. Those are those blades that look just like a grinder blade. Now the problem with those is when you're cutting metal with a saw, you get to cut, everything goes well, but you're really putting a lot of stress on the motor of your saw. If you want to kill your saw, put a lot of stress on it a lot. So don't use a metal blade on your circular saw. You're better off using a reciprocating saw. That's what they're made for cutting that kind of material with the right blade. You use the proper metal blade and a reciprocating saw, you're going to get a much cleaner, much faster cut than you are with a circular saw. Plus, that circular saw is going to have pieces of little metal flying around. There's going to be sparks everywhere. I had one guy set a shirt on fire once. It was pretty weird. So don't use your circular saw for metal. Try not to use it for masonry. They make saws for those jobs. Use it for your saw for doing your woodwork. That's really what it's for. Okay? The next kind of saw blade is going to be a dado blade. Yes, they do make dado blades for circular saws. What's a dado blade? A dado blade is two blades together that you can make them a little bit wider, a little bit thinner. And what they'll do is they'll cut you a nice channel inside of the lumber. If that's the only option that you have, then a dado blade is the way to go. But if it's possible, the proper tool for that job is going to be a router. So use a router to do that kind of work. With a circular saw and a dado blade, there's no way you're going to get the same accuracy. Okay, so that's pretty much all you need to know about saw blades. Just remember, when you're selecting a blade, consider the material you'll be cutting, okay, and what it is you're trying to achieve with that cut. So this is Joey from Cherry Hill Home Remodeling. I hope you learned a little something about blades. The big thing to remember is if you're doing demo work, you know you're going to be doing demo work. A 24 18 tooth, lower tooth blade with a thicker kerf is the way to go. They can take a beating, they can go through a nail. A lot of them can go, you'll see it'll say nail cutter on it. They'll go through a nail and not even lose a tooth. That's awesome. So that's worth the money. Now the other way to go is you want to, for your standard work, your everyday work, a 40 tooth blade is the way to go. Again, with a thicker kerf, because the 40 tooth blade can rip, it can cross cut, it can do everything you need it to do, and it won't bind, it won't kink, it won't do any of those things for you, and you'll get your job done in a timely manner with very little rip out, very little problems. Okay? Thank you for listening. I hope this video helped you get a little bit of knowledge on how to, I'm sorry, this is my dog. This is Missy, my St. Bernard. Hey, Missy. She keeps getting involved, so we're going to have to put her in the video. I hope you learned something. I hope things went well for you. Please remember, if you can, to please subscribe. She's begging too. Please hit the like and the notification buttons. Thank you for listening. It's time for their walk. Have yourself a great day. And remember, Joey for Cherry Hill Modeling signing off.